Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today, I want to pose a controversial question, which is, are gay men meant to experience romantic love? And by that, I mean, are gay men intended to experience romantic love the way our heterosexual counterparts are meant to experience romantic love? The reason I've been thinking about this recently is that I was talking to a gay friend about the gay uncle theory. Now, if you're not familiar with the gay uncle theory, I will link to it up here. I made a video on this subject a couple years ago. It's actually one of my favorite videos I've ever put out because I'd done quite a bit of research to condense this scientific theory behind why homosexuality exists in nature, not just in human beings, but in other species. The gay uncle theory is considered the most prevalent, the domineering theory as to why homosexuality exists in nature. And if you don't feel like watching my previous video, I'll give a brief synopsis on it, the Cliff Notes version. Essentially, the gay uncle theory states that the reason homosexuality exists in nature is because not every individual in, let's say, a tribe of any species is intended to reproduce. Because reproduction, if you think about it, puts a lot of stress and strain on a community. That's an extra mouth to feed with every offspring. That's another individual that you have to protect from potential predators. So the gay uncle theory essentially states that some individuals in a tribe are coded scientifically or designed to be like another parent in the tribe, hence gay uncle, another pillar of the community that will not reproduce, but instead offer additional support. So naturally, this sort of begs the question, well, if romantic love has a scientific purpose for reproduction, then perhaps gay men aren't scientifically designed for romantic love. I've talked on this channel many times about the challenges for gay men with dating and the challenges for gay men to have healthy relationships, particularly as it relates to relationships with other gay men. Of course, there's so many factors that affect those challenges, right? I mean, societal, trauma, the HIV and AIDS epidemic and the fear mongering that came with that, particularly in the 80s and 90s, the stigma of being gay and homophobia and religious impact, like all these things, of course, will affect a gay person's ability to form healthy relationships with other gay men, in particular romantic relationships. But on an objective scientific level, it made me really wonder if we're at a disadvantage compared to our heterosexual counterparts who not only are sort of trained and conditioned by our society, meaning by family, community, the media, to seek out romantic love, but perhaps also just on a purely scientific level are encouraged to pursue romantic love. The friend I was talking to about the gay uncle theory was telling me that he had never heard this hypothesis before, but that he found it compelling because in his observation and experience of being with bisexual guys or like discreet down low guys and all of that, he was saying that he's found a theme, which is that a lot of men are sexually attracted to other men, but it stops there. Like he's noticed that a lot of men, especially bisexual men, aren't able to see other men in a romantic way. It's purely physical and carnal, and it stops there. And that's, of course, an Achilles heel for so many gay men, this idea of being wanted by a man who's not traditionally gay, whether he's bi, whether he's DL. But again, it stops there, right? There's a desire there, but there's an inability to take the leap towards a romantic relationship or a monogamous relationship, right? I've talked on this channel before about how open relationships are so much more common with gay men. Again, many reasons for that. But is this all connected? Is this all connected to this idea of the gay uncle theory? By the way, speaking of romantic love, I mean, that's another big topic to tackle, right? How much of it is scientific, love, even just the concept of love in general, how much of it is scientific versus something we've been taught to believe conceptually. There is research and there are many studies on the concept of romantic love. And I remember reading many years ago that there's sort of an agreement in research that romantic love genuinely will last about 2 years. So, up to 2 years, you can have this really intense romantic bond with another human. So, let's say newlyweds, right? The first 2 years, there's a very intense romantic bond. But that typically after the 2 year period, the honeymoon phase really wears off. Hence the introduction of divorce, of affairs, of all the marriages that don't work out and people disconnect and they don't have anything in common anymore. This idea of the 2 year rule when it comes to romantic love would seem to indicate that there's enough of a pattern that there is a scientific basis, right, for romantic love, because it's more likely to lead to sex, and sex, of course, is more likely to lead to reproduction. At the end of the day, on a biological level, one of the main goals of a species is to survive and then continue to survive through reproduction. There's most definitely a sociological element to all of this. I mean, I see more gay couples nowadays, the last few years, even I would say, I see way more men holding hands, whether where I live in Miami or even when I travel. More than ever, I see men holding hands. In general, in media, we see more gay couples than ever. So there's for sure a sociological element to romantic love. At the same time, more gay men than not in my personal life, and just observation as well, tend to be devoted to something or someone other than a romantic partner. A lot of gay men are devoted to their career. They invest all their time and energy into their career, their business, their craft, their art, or devoted to individuals outside of romantic partnership. Like they'll be devoted to their family, to their parents, to their nieces and nephews, which circles back to, of course, the gay uncle theory. As always, very curious what you think of this. Have you thought about this before? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Catch you next time.